All right, welcome everyone. This is our very first Family Fun series. It is a collaboration between David's Refuge, Fitness Inclusion Network, and Arise Adaptive Design. And we have some supporting money from Golisano Upstate. So we are so excited to start this series. We're going to do a session every single month. And this month is all about winter adaptive recreation. And we're going to talk to you about how to build an adaptive toboggan at home. So you guys sort of know Peyton and I, so we don't need to intro ourselves, but we have two amazing guys on with us today, Tim and Jeff. So I'm going to intro them and I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So Jeff, I'm going to do you first. So you are the Regional Director of Residential Services at Racker. But I've told Peyton many times that titles tell what we do, but they don't always tell what our passions are. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about your story and tell kind of how you're passionate about recreational sports and different things that you're involved in.
Yeah, no problem, Rory. Thanks for the intro. So I am, like Rory said, the regional director for residential support at Racker, but my passion lies deeper than that in therapeutic recreation. I got into therapeutic recreation when I was a student at Brockport and took that passion into camps for children with life-threatening illnesses at the Double H Ranch in the Adirondacks for many years. And I was able to take my passion for outdoor recreation to the West Coast, where I was an intern and employee with Achieve Tahoe out near the Reno, Nevada and Tahoe, California, the state lines out there. And then I got my graduate degree in outdoor and environmental education because my passion for therapeutic recreation has always lied really strongly with outdoor and adaptive sports. Getting people to experience what I experienced as a kid, the growth that I experienced in my development as a child, the benefits of being outdoors and doing whatever I wanted. I have always thought that everyone deserves to be able to follow their passions for athletics, for recreation, for leisure, whatever they want to do. So what I do is try and find the best possible ways to support people of all ability levels to follow their passions for outdoor recreation. I have since been a camp director for Arise, and I'm currently the technical director for the Horizon Ski adaptive ski program at Toggenburg Mountain, which I have been the director for 3 years now. And unfortunately, as Rory knows, we weren't able to hold our season this year because of the pandemic. Although we have big plans for the future coming back next year stronger than ever, now that things are starting to turn around a little bit with the pandemic. And so I currently work at Racker, and I'm able to utilize all of my skill sets in adapting equipment, making things usable for people of all abilities, and developing programs to meet the needs of anybody through our residential program. So I didn't always see myself as a professional that would work in the residential field, but it has absolutely blown my mind how I've been able to utilize my skills as a therapeutic recreation specialist in this field with Racker. I was hesitant at first, to say the least, and have learned over the past year that anything is possible with recreation. Having these skills is extremely important. And I've had the benefit of working alongside professionals like Peyton and Tim. Sorry about my dogs.
No problem.
Anything goes during Zoom calls, so we're good.
And sorry, the mailman's here, obviously.
Perfect timing.
So I've had a great opportunity to work with Tim over the years in several different circumstances. So I will give the mic to him for a few minutes so he can introduce himself too.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff, for introing yourself. And Tim, you are a professor of adaptive physical education at SUNY Cortland. But I was saying to Peyton when I jumped on, when I looked at your page, it was so long that I decided I would let you talk about the things that you are most passionate about, that you are involved in.
Well, it's just because I'm old. That's all. That's just all that is. But no, it's fun, really fun to hear Jeff speak about his experiences, and as you're talking those things through, Jeff, I'm reflecting on my own personal growth. Starting, born and raised in Nevada, Reno area, the Tahoe area is my background. That's where I spent a lot of time cutting my teeth on a whole bunch of different fun outdoor related types of things. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I've always been that. I've been blessed with two parents who are my father and my mom, both in special education. My father was the state director of the state of Nevada, and my mom was a director of Council for Exceptional Children, and just all kinds of things in the area of working, with children with disabilities and their families. And so I guess I just kind of cut my teeth on the whole idea that, people are people. We just go out and do what we do because we do it together and not for. I don't do stuff for people. I do stuff with people because I love to do these types of things. And, I'm just listening, and I went to school in Northern California in Chico, and was very much involved with the Ability First wheelchair sports program there. I was a camp director there for many years, and that program still goes on. That's a week-long summer sports camp for kids with physical disabilities that does, we do everything from, water skiing to downhill skiing to you name it, they do it, scuba diving, all kinds of crazy stuff. And again, blessed to be with people who just looked at ability and not the barrier, and said, well, if we'll figure it out. You want to climb? Well, let's figure it out. You want to scuba dive? Well, let's figure it out. Okay, great. And so fast forward a whole bunch of years, a few degrees in a few states later, I'm sitting across from this young man with a blue sled, and we're kind of looking at this thing. We're saying, well, how are we going to get that seat in there? And Jeff suggested, well, maybe we could cut it. And I'm like, you got a saw? He goes, yeah, I got a saw. Oh, cool. Let's cut this thing. Yeah, let's go. So we started tearing into the sled to make
this is the first time we ever met, right, Tim?
Right. Yeah, pretty much. It's like, I like this kid. He's like, let's cut it. Yeah. All right. Get the saw out, get the drill, we're going to town. We got tools. We're loving life, and at the, it's about opportunity. So my whole philosophy, my whole demeanor, everything I do, whether it's with infants, toddlers, preschoolers, or on up, is creating opportunity, really where opportunity doesn't exist. And that's the mission, I think, from Dr. Dosa and on down, from folks in Syracuse who've just inspired all of us to be involved with, a little side program we're doing right now called Sensory Fit Families, just to engage. And so that's really what it's all about. I'm lucky enough to have a sensory integration lab at the college. I work with lots of college students, but on any given day, my real passion, if you will, is to work with children and be with children. And I'm lucky enough to have a beautiful wife who loves to play with kids, and she's an adaptive PE teacher too. So it's a win-win all the way across the board. So I wake up in the morning excited to do this work.
That's amazing. Well, as a parent whose child has benefited from so many of these services, just a huge thank you. And, so thankful to both of you and so many people like you in our community. I mean, we'll talk about it more later, Jeff, but I remember the first time watching our Hugo come down the mountain. And as a parent, when Hugo was a baby, you're so, overwhelmed by things. I never even envisioned that he would be able to do this thing that I grew up doing. And so to watch him be able to do it, and to think about the idea that that's something that we can do as a family, is just so incredible. So incredible.
And being, growing up with a disability, because of people like Tim and Jeff, being around them, and just having that kind of vibe throughout my life of, being told like, yeah, it's tough to do these things and you're gonna have to think outside the box to do them, but they're possible. I never questioned whether I could or couldn't do it. I would just, well, let's try it, and that's kind of the exciting, it's just the exciting things that professionals like you guys bring to the table. And we're so excited to be able to share this time with you. It's really fun.
Peyton, I am busting a gut inside because I'm laughing about the first time I met you. You were like, I don't know, 8 years old or something like that. And I'm like, hey, you want to be a flying squirrel? Remember that? You went up
Oh yeah.
and went around. We put him in
Oh,
a
yeah.
harness and flew him around the gym. And I'm still going to take credit for the whole soccer thing because,
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, he's like,
First time.
I go, what's your favorite sport? And he goes, soccer. And I'm like, you know, I got a ball for you. If you want to play soccer, come play with this one.
Yeah.
And he
Right.
brought out this ginormous Omnikin ball that's bright pink that was bigger than he was. And his smile was like from ear to ear. And he was hammering the ball with his chair,
right.
spinning around, kicking it, going, having a great time with, you know, just running into the ball left and right. And that was your first introduction to true.
Who knew?
soccer.
Who knew that would take me around the world? Yeah.
Exactly. That's opportunities, right? That's what it's all
Yeah.
about.
Exactly.
Very
That
cool.
is-
I just couldn't resist that story because I was
Oh, I
Love it.
dying laughing thinking about it.
Yeah.
Love a good story, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
Love a good story. Jump in with them anytime.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, you're
Oh
good.
no, you're fine. It's just cool to see how closely these circles have kind of, you know, formed throughout the years. Tim growing up in Reno, outside of Tahoe. Jeff working out there. I was a camper at Double H for close to 10 years and worked there for a summer. Jeff worked at Double H and now does adaptive skiing with Arise, and Hugo does Arise and ski. It's just incredible to see all of us kind of intertwining the Small World Syracuse thing, you know, presented
is.
all around the world.
It is such a small world, Peyton, and being, I would say I'm kind of a newer professional in the field. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, but to me, in the 8 to 10 years that I've been doing this, I've seen so much growth in inclusion in it's like the second I start talking, they have to talk. I've seen so much growth in the field of therapeutic recreation.
Yeah.
And I meet Peyton, and then I meet Tim, and I get to meet the Lawrence family. And you're right, we have all of these incredible connections. And I feel like every single time I start working on a project, all the names I know are brought to the table. Tim, since I met Tim, we've been involved in like probably 10 projects together without even realizing sometimes that we're involved in the same thing.
Well, he knew you were good with a saw. So
Yeah.
you-
I was good with a saw, yeah.
Right. It's like that kid. Yeah, get that kid. He's good with a saw. I like that kid.
Yeah, but similar minds, similar passions
Yeah.
are magnetically brought
Definitely.
together, I think.
Yeah.
And what happens when we're brought together is that we explore creative ways to make this happen. So we
Yeah.
couldn't do it without each other, I don't
Sure.
think. And there's a reason why the network of inclusion and accessibility in this field is so closely associated, because we
Yeah.
all feel the same way.
Yeah, and it starts with the families. You know, it starts with families that want to be active and might not have the resources or the know-how to get it going. And that's why I'm so excited about a conversation like this, just to explore where we can start out and how we can start out, getting outside and being active. And you know, we've already talked about it a little bit. The first time that Tim and Jeff got to meet each other and got to work with each other was Adaptive Winter Sports Day 3 years ago. Can you guys believe that it's already been 3 years, but it's only been 3 years? It seems like it was just yesterday, but
Yeah.
we've already done so much work together since then. So I would love to, Rory, if it's cool with you, I'd love to go into that day. You know, I think
Yes.
Tim, you brought some of the materials. Jeff, you happen to have some tools, but Tim, I'd just like to start with you because you brought the sled, and just going through, you know, what we need and what we, just the process of building, or getting to actually putting it together. Do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think to back up just a little bit,
Yeah, please.
there's, you know, going along with the idea of what Jeff had said about there's more opportunity. You're seeing more in, you know, different parts of the community being engaged. And it's not, I mean, it's a lot of people who have the similar interest, similar passion, similar philosophy with the desire to make Central New York a really a place where, you know, families can be together, play together, live together, and flourish. And that's really what it's all about. And for a long time, I've been in the state 21 years, and for a long time, it was like there'd be this group that would get together and do something. And then all of a sudden this group over here would do something, and this group, and they would do something for adults, but not for middle schoolers, and something for high schoolers, but not for infants, toddlers, preschoolers. There was always just this. Now I'm seeing more of this continuum where when you're done at the elementary level, it's picked up in some other activity at the middle school level, and et cetera. And so we're starting to see that continuum, if you will, of services that are aligned and working together and really kind of organically coming together in such a way that benefits a lot of people. And we're seeing that growth continue. So having to jump in on the toboggan day, the winter sports day, was really a invitation from Ninka and Dr. Dosa, who has had this vision of Central New York of being fully inclusive and embracing differences for so long. And so that this is just one example of so many, right? That she's kind of from behind the scenes, just real subtle, like pushed and brought people together.
Upper tier.
Kudos have to go to her. So how do we get going? Looking at, taking the any adapted equipment comes from a need. So if you look at the need is, hey, I want to get a kid with, who has this mobility or this type of ability to get out on the snow. We have to kind of break it down and figure out, what do I need to do to get that to happen, right? And you have to look at the child's ability or the individual's ability first. I mean, that's the essential part. And like I said in the very beginning, philosophically, I've been blessed from having parents who that's all they talked about from the time I was little all the way through, that, hey, you just look at the person's ability and go with it, right? So I've always kind of had that. So when Jeff and I said, had this basic frame of a sled to say, hey, let's see what we can get somebody in here and moving, it became pretty easy to say, well, we need a seat, we need this, we need some way to connect it and make it ultimately as independent as possible, right?
And cheap.
And that's really
cheap. Yeah.
Yes.
Cheap.
Cost effective.
Yeah,
Cost
cost effective,
effective is
cheap.
important.
That was a $10 sled, right?
Exactly.
And I pulled that out of the garage, and my sons used to use that one. So, it's my ice fishing sled. So I yanked it out and we used that. But it's like approaching the problem from the standpoint, hey, I have this desire to do it, or I present to a family and say, you can get your kid, your whole family can go out and do this together if we just do this. And we had a family in Marcellus who had a child who was involved in our spina bifida clinic years ago, another program that Ninka started and got us all involved with, right? And I'll never forget that the parent said, my son really wants to go sledding, but no one wants to take him. No one's willing to pull him back up the hill. All the teachers are afraid to let him sled. So while he sat inside, all of his peers went outside and went sledding. And I thought to myself, that is just absolutely wrong. That is not going to happen. So I actually presented this idea of building a sled like this to the school district and to the PE teacher, probably 5-6 years before we ever got around to doing this actual project. But I wish I could say that they actually did it, but unfortunately they didn't. The snow melted by the time they got around to doing it. So I'm going to stop there. Jeff, pick up where what's your perspective on how we?
Well, actually, I'd like to jump in real quick just to talk about Adaptive Winter Sports Days in the past. This was a program that Fitness Inclusion Network had run with Move Along, a program in the Central New York area based on adaptive sports, and also with Syracuse Parks and Rec. Amazing partner to work with, very ready to be inclusive and to learn from experts in the field, and definitely want to give a shout out to them. But this past year, or this particular Adaptive Winter Sports Day that we're talking about in 2018, kind of came together through both Syracuse Parks and Rec being interested in having outdoor activities during the winter for people of all abilities. So we did some fundraising and got a couple of Nordic sleds and had a Paralympic Nordic skier with us to talk and kind of show us how to do stuff in terms of using the equipment. We had a local fashion designer named Bobby Ree Hurd. Her product line is Hello Doggo. Her product line is called Brecky, and she did an amazing job marketing for us. We did a scavenger hunt all throughout the city leading up to the Adaptive Winter Sports Day to kind of get people excited about getting outside during the winter. And then that's where Tim and Jeff came in right at the end there to do some building stuff. So yeah, Jeff. So we got the supplies. We're all together. You want to start what it was like working with Tim to kind of put something together?
Well, from what I remember, we were kind of put on the spot because there was a program and people had presented a few things, and Tim had talked about a couple of things beforehand, and then we were looking for other things to do. It might have come from a question from a family member.
Yeah,
actually, like, well, like how could we get so and so out and doing this affordably? And it took us very few supplies. We had rope, we had the toboggan sled, which I think is a 5-foot long sled made from
Plastic.
formed plastic.
Yeah.
Probably $10. We had duct tape, we had a saw, and we had one of those creek chairs. Crazy Creek
canoe chair. We actually had 2 chairs. Crazy Creek canoe chair is a soft bleacher chair, right?
Yep.
It folds up. It'll fit in a canoe, a strap on the bottom of a canoe. And of course, I had one. So we had the Crazy Creek canoe chair.
Foam.
And then we also had a solid frame.
More like a bleacher chair.
Bleacher chair, exactly.
Yeah.
We ended up using, you could use both, but we ended up using the solid frame bleacher chair. That's where the saw came in, cutting it and making sure it fit in there just right, and was connected to the sled, so it all became one piece. And so if a person moved their upper body or twisted or whatever, it would all move with them. Kind of the concept of a sports wheelchair. It needs to fit. If it's too big, it's like wearing big sloppy shoes. It's not going to work well for you. So it was kind of that idea applied.
And speaking of like making sure it fits, part of that process related to me very closely to adaptive skiing, because when we take someone out in a bi-ski and we're fitting them to that ski, they have to fit in that seated that sit chair or sit ski very, very tightly, so that their body movement doesn't affect their balance and everything. So I think I had brought like a ton of foam because I had brought the bi-skis with me. And so we packed the foam in there. We were able to make sure that the participant that we were kind of fitting the ski to, really, they felt snug, and safety and security is an important factor in this type of modification, because the person that you're modifying the equipment for is putting their trust in your hands. And so whatever you're making or creating, they have to know that whatever you're creating is safe. And it was astonishing that we were able to, in less than a half hour, create a fully adaptive piece of sledding equipment that was safe for like $10 to $15, maybe a little bit more.
They used it, right? The little girl.
And we used it that day. We literally took it off the table and went and used it.
So they had, what was so cool about that day too is we had everything from Bob Bach and the Paralympic level skier, right, going up and down the hill, just flying around, and all the way down to this this little modified sled where a child 5, 6, 7 years old could actually go out and participate with everybody in between. And we had I think there was like a $600 plastic sled that was there as well.
That red sled.
So that red sled that I don't even know if got used, but it was like everything in between. And so we had this full range of hey, if I started at this level, could see myself at a higher level, right? Which I think is often really important for anyone participating in.
I mean, that goes back to the power soccer story that you told of me being in Cortland as like a 7-year-old and just like playing around in a gymnasium with a bunch of people in wheelchairs. And then fast forward 25 years and I'm competing in the World Cup, you know, for power soccer. So I think it is really important for kids, you know, with different types of ability levels to see that they aren't alone. That's one of my main takeaways from adaptive sports every time, is that there are other people just like me that do things maybe a little differently, but still have to go through a lot of the same stuff that I do. And wow, they're taking it to a whole new level than I ever even dreamed about. So just being able to see that connection with your community and see that connection to people that might be role models for these kids. Go ahead.
20 years ago, first year at Cortland, I met Ninka, Dr. Dosa, who helped sponsor our wheelchair adapted sports camp. And we actually took a boat from Arise, a big platform boat, and went out on the lake with the kids. We shot bows. We did a host of different things. We created we had a little girl who wanted to ice skate, and again, chair user, but she wanted to go out and be an ice skater with the ice skating, her local ice skating club, but she didn't have the right kind of sled, and the sled hockey sled just wasn't going to cut it. So we took these long blades and we mounted them onto a different kind of sled, which called a Proschberger sit ski, and she could sit up really high, and she could spin, and she could turn, and she could do all the things. And lo and behold, guess what? She got to participate in that, skating program, which was like amazing, right? All because of just some minor adaptations to the equipment. So I think it goes back to a lot of times looking at, the individual, what their desire is, sharing with the parents, hey, your kid can do this, right? Don't, sometimes we have to get over that barrier. We got to, say, hey, your kids can do this, and let us show you how. I think the nice thing, Jeff, about that day was the opportunity to do that in a warm, safe, comforting environment, to have people try out the sled rather than out on the snow where everybody's cold trying to figure out how to build it right there. We were inside, which I would strongly encourage anybody to do. If you're going to make something, a homemade piece of equipment or adapted equipment, do it inside, take your time, make sure it fits before you ever go out and experiment out in the field.
Yeah, especially as someone with a disability, it's really fun to be out in the sled, but I personally won't be doing as much movement as everybody else. So I will get a lot colder than, someone who's pulling the sled along or using their arms to trudge through the snow. So yeah, definitely important. And another, I'd love to highlight the word safe. One of my personal favorite words when it comes to having fun. Double H, we always used to talk about safe fun. And that's a really important detail from this conversation. I will, because Rory has asked me to tell this story multiple times. I will share a quick little, before, the Tims and the Jeffs of the world were on the internet telling people the best ways to go about getting out and being active in the winter. My family put together a sled ski type of throne looking thing that I would get pushed around on. And it was aptly named after probably less than one winter of use. It was aptly named the Death Chair because it was built on 2x4s and plywood up on cross-country skis. And it was a little tippy. It was solidly built for sure, but it was a little too tall. And, as a teenager or as a, preteen, my friends and I would take it out into my backyard and, wouldn't really care about the safety part of things. And we'd get going down hills and, so it definitely earned the name Death Chair, as some bad things could have happened in that thing, but luckily we made it through. So one of the biggest stressors that I have for this is practicing safety when we're out on the snow. This design and what we're talking about is mostly for outdoor exploration and not outdoor thrill seeking. Thrill seeking is at your own risk, but exploration can be really helpful. So yeah, I don't know, Jeff, if you want to talk a little bit about safe fun at all.
And
Yeah, I
I'd
think
love for you guys to do like some tips too. Like Tim, you did, like doing the build inside and talking about safety. So we have actually a 4-page booklet that families will be able to download that kind of go a little bit more into the instruction. But yeah, Jeff and Tim, what would be great is ideas behind like tips. Like Jeff, I loved how you talked about the foam or, how to make it fit. I think about my very favorite OT of his, and she always said like you can do anything with a pool noodle and duct tape.
Oh, sure.
so that's a great point, Rory. And one of the tips that I always give people in building your own adaptive equipment is don't think too hard. That's like the number one tip I would give someone that's for the first time trying to build adaptive equipment. One of my favorite mentors, Rich Fabend, he's the director of handyhelp.net. If you're interested in some accessibility adaptive equipment resources, he says you can make just about anything from duct tape, zip ties,
Rope.
rope, what are they called? Comes together. Velcro. Velcro is like one of his favorite things. He's like,
Yes.
Velcro, you can do anything with these things. Cardboard. Connor Magoo, who I think he's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
The Rise Adaptive Design makes incredible pieces of equipment from really strong, sturdy corrugated cardboard.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend a ton of money to make these things happen. Sure, you could 3D print something like a Rise Adaptive Design does, but they also make a lot of things out of cardboard that you find in your recycling bin.
Yep.
So keeping it simple is a good way to also mitigate cost, and it doesn't always mitigate safety though. So there are certain things that you need to take into consideration when cutting down on cost, I think.
Well, I think the safety piece is if you project yourself doing that, if you say, okay, if I'm going to do this, what do I need to be safe? Kind of think of it from that perspective. And right away with that blue sled, we had to make sure, and Peyton, you brought this up. The reality is that most parents are going to go out for 15, 20, 30 minutes maximum out on the snow and ice with their child. So number one, we need to make it safe. We need to make it fun. We need to make it warm. We need to make it like, I want to come back and do this again.
Right.
So, we put a blue Thinsulate pad, glued it to the bottom of the, actually Velcroed it, I think, to the bottom of the sled. So there was insulation between you sitting on your bottom and your legs touching that sled, or touching the sled and then the snow. You're going to lose your body heat really, really quickly. So the first thing, thinking from the bottom up, we had to say, hey, in order for anyone to stay out here for any length of time and not get frostbite, because if you can't feel your feet or you can't feel certain parts of your body, you got to be aware of that. So, starting with that basic idea of insulation, padding, just like Jeff was saying, and then building up to functionality. What is the function that I need to do? And so how do I have to position the individual so that they can be as independent as possible? Goes to then looking at the sled, or looking at, in this case, at the seating, and then mobility of the upper body to then move independently. So it was a lot of fun putting the ideas together.
Yeah, I think another piece when it comes to safety is that this is not meant to be a downhill sled.
Definitely not.
Necessarily. So one of us said earlier it's for exploration, and a lot of people. Yesterday, for instance, I went to Lime Hollow here in Portland and took my dogs for a hike on the Lehigh Rail Trail. Really nice, flat, old rail bed, right? But I am very lucky to be able to do that independently myself and see the trees during winter differently than I see them in the springtime, and hear the different types of birds that you hear during the winter time. and be in my moment of Zen. And it only took me a small amount of time to get there and bring my dogs with me. This is the type of experience that a person who would need this sled, it would value as well. Just getting out into the woods during winter, and this is the most accessible way to do it at this point, is very valuable. And I think that, you know, sometimes even I lose the perspective of like, how do I make this accessible? Well, I try to bring myself back to what I would do in that circumstance. And this is the perfect way to get someone out into the woods and help them explore a different season.
Yeah, and great transition to the final page of the guidebook that will be available for download on Fit-In's website. Is the final page is all about the Inclusive Recreation Resource Center. So if you're listening to Jeff talk right there and you're like, wow, that sounds so cool, that place sounds amazing, but I don't know of anything in my area that is like that. How could I find something, you know, how could I locate a place like that without, you know, pulling out maps and doing all this crazy research? Jeff, you want to talk a little bit about the IRRC?
How much time do we have left? All right.
Oh, well, only a couple minutes.
I'll
so,
just cut you off if I have to, Jeff.
yeah,
It's
we'll
fine.
just click end meeting, no worries.
Yeah, one of the things I left out in my bio at the beginning of this was my work with the Inclusive Recreation Resource Center when I was a grad student at SUNY Cortland. And it's a wonderful resource, an online resource, but in order to get the data we need to put into the database to describe features of recreation sites is what we do. We don't evaluate, we assess and provide descriptive information. People actually have to go and provide the assessments. So when I was a grad student, I worked with Dr. Lynn Anderson, the director of the IRRC, and helped her finish up a grant which assessed 400 state parks and DEC sites across New York State. So I spent a summer with my friend Ian camping all over New York State and assessing state parks, interviewing park managers, meeting DEC managers, and then not only writing reports for them to explain how they could make their sites more accessible, but then putting the information into the database so that families like the Lawrences could go in and say, hey, what exactly does this state park have as far as accessibility goes if we're going to go visit it? Because what often happens is families will assume that things are accessible or assume that things are not accessible. Mm-hmm. And they go and they're disappointed because it's not as accessible or as inclusive as they thought it was going to be. This database gives people the opportunity to see exactly what is offered there before they make the trip. A classic example of this that Dr. Anderson always gives is that back in the day at a ski resort near us, I won't name the ski resort, the family went, and before they went, the father, who uses a wheelchair and was a pretty good mono skier, a sit skier, they didn't want to fly with his mono ski, which is a very expensive piece of equipment, and it would have cost an arm and a leg. So they called and they said, hey, we heard that you have an adaptive ski program. We're coming, can I use or rent one of your mono skis? When they showed up, and they said, yes, please, we would love to have you rent it. And so when they showed up to the mountain, it was a child-sized mono ski, and the father would never have fit in the mono ski, and he ended up watching from afar. Mm-hmm. Well, the database gives the opportunity for the family to really look at all of the different adaptive equipment that mountain offers and make their own assessment before they go, mm-hmm. even after they've called and said, well, let's just double check into mm-hmm. this. So the point of the database is to avoid those things happening, and it works very well. I actually just finished up assessing 12 parks in Irondequoit, New York. So even though I don't work for the IRRC any longer, I still try to get out there and put parks into the database because I feel it's so important for spreading positive information about inclusion.
Yeah. Well, and I love the idea of that because, you know, for our family, we're always trying to explore different things. For Hugo, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. We always are like, let's just try it. Let's see. But, you know, for families like ours, and for so many families that we all know, you know, the amount of equipment or things that you have to just pack and get ready to go try something, it's incredible to have a resource like that and know, okay, but once we get there and once, you know, I get him in the chair and get him in the car and get his backpack and his feeding tube and, you know, all the things, we're going to get there and it's going to be fine because they're going to have what we need. You know, and so a database like that for families almost takes this level of stress away, and it allows, you know, the excitement to explore to just increase. Because, you know, I'm going to circle back just a little bit, but even when we started this, Peyton and I and Dr. Dosa went through different names for this series. And when we landed on Family Fun Series, the whole idea behind it, quite honestly, is that families that have children with special needs, and especially living through this last year with COVID, have so many different challenges that oftentimes fun is not the first thing in their minds. And my husband escapes from that because he currently has a Nerf gun zip tied to my son's chair with a switch button. So he is always all about fun, which is great. But, you know, for so many families, just trying to come up with that is hard. And so our hope with this series is just that, to give people hope, to give them just these ideas of ways that they can explore their communities, that they can explore areas that are near them, that they can try different things at home. And Peyton and I have talked about this before too. One of the things I love with the adaptive toboggan and it being so reasonable is that the reality with our kids, or any kid or any person, you might like it, you might not.
Yeah.
So at least with things being a little more reasonable or being able to test them out, is this idea that you can feel comfortable trying something out with your child and you hope they're going to love it. But we have a sled for Hugo, and sometimes he likes it and sometimes he doesn't. He loves the skiing because it's motion for him. But I think things like this and programs like this give families the go ahead to really try things with their family. So that's, you know, just one of the pieces that we, you know, love the most about this series and exploring this. And we only have a couple more minutes. But Tim and Jeff, I thought would be fun too, is like, can you tell us like your favorite adaptive thing to do in the area? You can only pick one.
Jeff, you want to go
Peyton,
first?
you too.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a little spoiled because I direct an adaptive ski program. I would say adaptive skiing 100% because it's extremely thrilling. And like you were saying, Rory, Hugo likes the speed. He likes the motion of things and the smile. And it's a skill set that is a little bit out of the ordinary. Like I said, I went to Tahoe and I got the chance to learn from some of the best adaptive ski instructors in the world. And I had a very unique experience doing so. And it was like 2 years after coming back from Tahoe that I realized I hadn't been doing it enough. And I got back into it at Greek Beaks Adaptive Program. And I was like, what have I been doing? Why am I not doing this anymore? And there was a piece of me missing. So adaptive skiing and being able to tether a person that's using a bi-ski, which is one of the most unique skills a person can have. And it coming back to me like riding a bike was my sign that I'm meant to be doing this. And it's something that I'm passionate about and that is good for me and the people that I'm helping to support while we're doing it.
Cool.
Love it.
So my happy place is actually being on the water. Jeff knows I love to fish. So fishing to me, and fishing in upstate New York is the best, right? Even ice fishing right now. The guy had that like 47-inch tiger muskie the other day. So out of the ice, you know, it was in the paper. It was crazy. But for me, it's getting out on the water, and I'm an avid kayaker. My wife loves to kayak too. She loves to fish too. So kayaking kind of levels the playing field, right? When in terms of mobility. And then it's just a matter of, hey, if you want to fish, let's get out and fish. And there's all different kinds of adaptations to afford an individual to fish independently. You know, there's just, and like Jeff, you mentioned the one resource, there's lots of resources out there that talk about or show different adapted fishing devices. But even if you don't have that, I mean, it's just, it's just being out on the water and being together, you know, is really a lot of fun. So for me, that's my happy place. Although anything working and playing with kids is the other spot, the other like place where I get my cup full, so to speak.
Nice.
All
A
right.
few years ago, Tim, I taught a new course I developed for SUNY Cortland's recreation program called Adaptive Wilderness Excursions. And part of the course was building an adaptive rig for a canoe or a kayak. It was universal. You could fit it on any kayak or any canoe. And
Nice.
all we used was a shower curtain rod, a high strength shower curtain rod, and foot long, 10-inch diameter pieces of PVC capped as the flotation devices.
For an outrigger,
And
right? To keep it
for your
stable.
outriggers.
Yeah, outrigger.
It came out of the back of the canoe or the kayak, and we went up to Racket Lake and we tested it out for a weekend. And we could not flip this thing. It was
That's
it
great.
was really amazing, but it showed us how simple it can be. You know,
It goes back to that idea of risk. And I love what you mentioned, Peyton. Risk is perceived, you know, it's a perceived risk. I'm at an age now where, you know, just if I'm going to jump off, so I'm going to look at it and go, maybe my kids will sail off and, oh, this is easy, Dad. But I'm like, I don't think so anymore, you know? So it's that notion. So perception of risk and excitement kind of go hand in hand. So whether I'm on a sled on a flat surface or whether I'm on a hill sledding or whatever, it's all your perception. And I think that's the part that, you know, families and all of us, when we get together, can do those things on that whole. We can engage it at whatever ability we're at, you know, and have a lot of fun doing it.
I agree.
don't think too hard.
There you
Yeah,
go.
exactly. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite winter or adapt? Well, you can't say soccer.
I was just gonna say, what about soccer? That the season's during the winter.
Right.
I did ski downhill through Double H for many years when I was younger, and I haven't since I was about 19 years old. So I'm definitely, you know, Jeff has been, you know, definitely pushing me to get back out on the slopes at some point, and I think, you know, I would love to get back out there soon. So, you know, just the feeling of the freedom and the individual spirit of cruising down the hill. You know, you might have a tether behind you, but it just feels so free to be cruising down the hill, skiing and just taking in the beautiful sights. So definitely my favorite winter activity. Never been ice fishing though before. So Tim, both of you might have to, you know, Jeff, you're gonna have to get me back into skiing, and Tim, you're gonna have to take me out ice fishing at some point.
We can fish in the summer too. We could.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
we could do that
sounds
as
better.
well. I wish we had water skiing. We have some amazing adapted water skis. And I used to do a lot of water skiing in California, as well as in Indiana before coming here.
Awesome.
And the sit ski, the can ski, the adapted skis that are out there for water skiing. You would love that too, buddy.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Guaranteed.
Well, we could talk all day about this stuff. So,
No.
you know, I think we'll have to do another session with you guys at some point.
Love to.
Not on the calendar yet because next month is sensory pathways, which is going to be a really fun topic. But, you know, we have a lot of cool stuff coming from the Family Fun series. Jeff and Tim, love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to the conversation continuing in Central New York. And yeah, awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, happy
Thanks
to
for
be
having
here.
us.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Take care.
Yeah.